number 4, who I had above you, is Jalin Hyatt. And first thing I mentioned, I loved his speed, and we saw it. If you saw that Alabama game, that really was it. Was him just burning people a lot that game. They seemed to underestimate his speed, and he's got. I wrote down a comp for him, very Deshaun Jackson-ish in terms of, I'm not saying that he will be that guy, but he has that similar strength where he's very good at the deep threat, and he's physical enough, like I mentioned with Addison. That was a concern where I think it seems like he'll be fine, and especially off the line of scrimmage too. Against most, I'm saying average-ish corners, I'm not saying the top, starter guys. I don't think he'll have many issues against the press there. I think he has the ability. He has the ability to run a handful of routes very well. I'm not going to say he's a route technician, so that's definitely, I would say, a weakness of his, you could say. But yeah, I just feel like a team's going to value him high, and he just reminds me a lot of like a Will Fuller. I know that's not a great comparison because Will Fuller, dealt a lot of injuries, but as we all saw when Fuller did play, he was a legit deep threat. And I just think that Hyatt, you place him in the slot, place him outside, he can be that guy. He can also run the medium routes pretty well. And obviously with any great athlete, which I think he is, obviously at the receiver position, I could see him developing maybe a little bit of a short game too to help him out. But obviously some weaknesses. I mentioned route trees kind of limited, but that's hard. It's hard for us to tell because, sometimes that's what the college system itself has a limited route tree. It's not like he can't run a limited route tree. So, but nonetheless, also I mentioned he's mainly going to be a slot guy, but I could see him in moments, being moved outside, or he's going to have to be a guy that, is part of a bunch or something so he can get a free release. So you may have to work with him at the next level. And then I would say this is kind of a knock, but average ball skills. I'm not going to say he's like the most amazing at high pointing and stuff like that. He's not going to, do a lot of 50-50 stuff, but he's a solid, he's not going to get, I didn't see any brutal drops. So that's a little bit of good and bad there. So Jalin Hyatt out of Tennessee is my number 4 wide receiver. Who is yours, John?
Before I say my number 4, I do want to talk about Jalin Hyatt because he's actually not in my top 5. Spoiler alert.
Understandable.
He's around 6, 7, 8 range. I haven't fully ranked outside of the top 5 to be honest. So, but he would be an honorable mention for me. The biggest concerns I had about him, first his speed is electric, like you said. The speed, the size, it's pretty ideal. I like the comparison of Deshaun Jackson. I think that he could have some of those electric type of plays. Will Fuller, too. I thought that was a really good one. Once again, although Will Fuller did deal with injuries, when he did play, the guy was a beast. Yes. So I do like those comparisons. My biggest concern with Jalin Hyatt is I don't think that there is a team in the NFL that will have a role for him like he had at Tennessee. At Tennessee, last year, he only played 31 snaps against press coverage the entire season, and that just won't exist in the NFL. You might get a single team that will run 31 snaps of press coverage on you. So I think that's going to increase between 5 and 10-fold in the NFL. And so I'm not saying he can't do it. I just haven't seen it, and that worries me. I don't know. The lack of experience there could be an issue, or it could happen and he could blow those guys out of the water. I just don't know, and so I can't give him the benefit of the doubt there because I just didn't see it. And then also, I wonder how his speed will translate once those press things kind of do happen. If teams start to adjust and they throw a safety over the top, can he make plays? I'm not. And once again, this is a potential critique of college and not actually Hyatt himself. So I will own up to that. There just wasn't a lot of plays that they required him to change direction, do any crazy route running, anything really special. It just seemed like his role in the offense was run and beat the guy with your speed. And once again, no press coverage, so they were giving him a lot of cushion, so he was able to take his time to set up the route that he wanted. I worry that in the NFL there could be some corners that exploit that pretty heavily, and if that does happen, all of a sudden it turns out it is a weakness, then the electric playmaker that he was just could be capped at the line of scrimmage, and then you got to start developing some other things. Once again, could he do it? I don't know. We just haven't seen it. So that was the reason he's not on the top 5 for me. And that's always the tough part about college football, man. There's just so many offenses and like play styles and whatever that sometimes the player is really good at it and we just don't get to see it. I mean, this is a different sport, but like Donovan Mitchell in the NBA, nobody knew that the guy was going to be a superstar, and then he gets to the NBA and he is, and they ask him why, and he says, well, at Louisville, we had 2 centers that couldn't shoot, and we played them all the time. So I tried to drive into the paint, and there was always like 10 guys down there just waiting for me because our floor was so clogged. And so sometimes there's just stuff that you can't overcome just because of the way that your team plays, and then you get to the next level and we realize, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing.
Just to interject to add on to that football reference wise, like DK Metcalf and AJ Brown,
right.
Like guys, in case people don't know, they were together in college at Ole Miss. It's just Ole Miss was terrible at their quarter. No, I don't know who their quarterback was. I don't remember. I'm sorry, but their quarterback was not good. And as we see now, those two are really good. So they obviously were not utilized correctly at Ole Miss.
Right.
To your point.
So who knows? Like I said, Hyatt could prove me wrong here, and this is a risky one because I mean the guy was the Biletnikoff winner and he balled out last year. And if he gets in the right scheme, like God forbid he ends up on like the Chiefs or something, then
I'm
going to eat my words.
End of the first round, Kansas City, like they lost a couple of deep threats. I mean, the Bills could use one. I'm just saying, like, and that's why I hear you. Like, he has to kind of go to the right place, the place that's going to say, hey, we know you're not great at press. Don't worry about it. We'll get you ways to get free releases like Andy Reid does with motions and bunches and things like that. But if he's like with the more simplistic, like Seattle offense, I know they won't take him, but that's where I would be concerned because they just say, okay, line up and, there's no real motion.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, if you get him with an offensive mind, like we saw Christian Watson on the Packers, like, yeah, it took a little bit, but eventually they found the way to get the ball in his hands and he starts going crazy. The Chiefs, I even think it like Chase Claypool, his rookie year, maybe wasn't the most refined, but they found ways to just put the ball in his hands and let him make plays. If he can get an offense like that, then, I mean, I could be eating my words here.